It's trash day, I'm putting you out, it's trash day. I'm putting you out, it's trash day. I'm putting you out of my mind. It's trash day, I'm putting you out, it's trash day. I'm putting you out, trash day. I'm putting you out of my mind. Now I'm gonna clean up, now I'm gonna clean up, now I'm gonna clean up the house. Taking all your garbage, taking all your garbage, taking all your garbage.
And welcome back to another Can Crushers Wrestling Spotlight. I am your host, Mark the Mark Martinez, and we are going old school today. Why? Why are we going old school? Because the man that you see in the promo picture is Uncle Jaxon Breeze. He has been in the wrestling business for about 30 years. Promoter, manager, owner, jack of all trades in this business. I cannot wait to dive into some stories about things that you don't know about. We're going to hold off on the surprises until we get there during the interview because I'm pumped. He works with Future Great Wrestling right now, and he's trying to be the general manager. November 5th, there is an election. This boggles my mind, first off, because it's an election in wrestling. What the hell could go wrong, right? Make sure you check out Future Great Wrestling's Facebook page and all of that, because shit has rolled downhill already with this election coming up. So check them out. As soon as we hear from Al Snow telling you about Collar and Elbow, all the great hats, hoodies, tees, and everything, we have Jaxon Breeze on the line, ready to talk old school wrestling, some training, and some other things he's done way in the past. Not way in the past. I don't want to make him sound like he's 150 years old, but you get it. You get it. So here comes Al to talk about Collar and Elbow.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
And welcome back to Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. I told you in the intro how excited I was to talk to this man. He has been around the business close to 30 years, promoter, owner, soon to be general manager, anything you can imagine in professional wrestling. This man is an all-around wrestling guru. It is Uncle Jaxon Breeze. Jaxon, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, brother.
How's everything over there in Ohio treating you right now?
Weather-wise, it's gloomy as hell here.
Yep.
But as far as the wrestling world, everything's golden in the tri-state area.
Everything is golden, and we're going to jump right into that right off the bat, because here in the near future, November 5th, I believe, FGW, if you guys don't know what it is, it's called Future Great Wrestling. They're going to have an election to find out who their new general manager is, and if I get a vote, I'm putting it for you, because everything you've been doing there, you need to be that general manager. And how did this all start, Jaxon?
I appreciate the kudos and the props and the vote. I'll appreciate the vote. Jaxon needs all the votes he can get. I actually was the original Future Great Wrestling general manager for the first 3 years. During the pandemic, it kind of screwed me over, and nobody was allowed out to go anywhere, and I couldn't go re-sign my contract. So I got replaced.
That's horrible. That's just the way we were talking a little bit before we got on the air. This pandemic has screwed up a lot of stuff, and so now we have an election coming up.
Yeah. I actually got to replace myself over the past year with the David Barnabas Spector, that the fans so lovingly call Barney. And I kind of did it to teach the owner a lesson, because he had been giving me a hard way to go over the last year that I was GM there and stuff. And he was basically turning me into a heel and blaming all the bad things on me. So I figured I'd show him what bad could be, and I picked out the one guy that I knew that would screw him over the most, and that's how David Barnabas Spector got to be GM. But the fans love to hate Barney. And now his contract is over in November, so Brian is really big on giving the fans what they want. So he put it up to them to decide who the new general manager would be, and he made us hold an election. And it started out just me and old Barney, but then all of a sudden Brian came out and made it an open election, and next thing you know, old William Wolf and J.C. Flash and even commentator Bryce T jumped on board to throw his name in the hat. So we had a big debate last week.
Yeah, I saw that on the old social media, that you had a kind of sit-down debate in the ring, and it didn't look like it went well for some, right?
For some, yep. It kind of broke down. Damn near turned into a battle royal, and just all chaos. Barney got in my face, called me a liar and all kinds of stuff. Then he laid his hands on me and shoved me almost out all the way out of the ring, and then the rest of them just broke out into chaos, just beating the tar out of each other. And I don't know, I thought about it for a minute. You know, it's bad enough Barney laid his hands on old Jaxon, but then I just couldn't get past the part of calling me a liar and stuff, because, you know, where people like me and you come from, you know, our word is all we've got in this world. And a lot of people don't take it as serious as us folks from the hills and stuff, but that's all you got in this world. And it kind of was attacking my name, so I took all I could take from Barney for the past year, and I thought about that for a couple minutes. Next thing you know, I found myself perched up on the top rope. And next thing you know, I was an airborne ranger, and unfortunately for Barney, he was my landing spot.
I saw that. You flew with ease, Jaxon. When was the last time you've been up on the top rope to fly like that?
Oh, God. Actually, been years. One, it takes a lot to push me to get physical violence, you know what I mean? But
right.
As you said, I've done this for 29 years, and most of the time I've been manager and office-type person and things like that, out in the ring, talking on the mic a whole lot. But I did train under one Les Thatcher that you might have heard of over the years.
Slightly heard of him, yeah. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I trained with Les for many, many years at Heartland Wrestling. I was actually one of the co-founders with Les at Heartland Wrestling. He actually started training me in the 90s, early 90s. I started in 92 at a place that was, I think it was like WCCW or something, or WWCW, but they changed their name shortly after to NWF, Northern Wrestling Federation, out of Cincinnati, which they're still running strong and proud.
So let's do the rewind all the way back, though, to how did you find wrestling as a little guy, as a little Jaxon? Was it a family member that said, this is where you're going to be in time, you know, watching it on the TV and stuff like that?
Well, I actually started watching when I was a little kid, watching a lot of the Tennessee and Georgia type stuff down in the hills of Kentucky with my cousins. But fast forward from just watching and being a fan, I actually had a factory job, and a couple buddies that worked there with me had been in independent wrestling for a while. One, Tarek the Great, and the original American kickboxer, Frank Mullins, and they talked me into it while we was at work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just at work, they're like, hey, let's go do this. Did they do it together with you, or was it just you completely doing it by yourself?
They'd been doing it for a while, the two of them, the American kickboxer and Tarek the Great. and they had already, they'd been traveling the tri-state for a while at the time. And Turk was a really hated heel and kind of thought he needed an edge. And talking together at work and all, I kind of knew a whole lot of the psychology and behind the scenes stuff already in wrestling. And he decided I would be the perfect man to be his manager.
So when you went through with Les, did you go through the whole spiel? Because we know that there's different ways to train, one for a referee, one for a manager, one for, a wrestler. But that has only been recently, Jaxon, because back in the day, you had to train all the way, right?
Yeah, with Les and the old timers like Les and anybody who trains now that trained under Les, they all have the same philosophy. It doesn't matter what you're going to do in professional wrestling, whether it's a manager, a referee, sweeping the floors for that matter. If you're going to be in the business, you need to learn what the hell's going on, and you train just like the wrestlers. You train to be a wrestler no matter what you were doing, and that's like my brother-in-law, Cody Hawk. He's the third ever only to be nominated Cauliflower Alley Trainer of the Year, which he trained guys like John Moxley and Eli Drake, which is LA Knight now, and Sammy Callahan. But a few fellas like that you may have heard of.
Yeah, maybe.
And, Cody still runs the same type of training they all did. No matter what you're going to do in this business, if you're going to be involved, he's going to train you to learn how to be a wrestler, whether you're going to be a referee or what.
And I like that. Not that I have any money in the game or anything, but I like that because even if you're, and I'm not saying that it's a nonchalant position, if you're a commentator or you're just the ring announcer or something, it gives you the idea and understanding what the talent it has to go through. And maybe some pipe dream comes down the line of being an announcer that you get thrown into, because a lot of shit happens in wrestling, right, Jaxon? That maybe an announcer has to fight sometimes.
Oh, no doubt. Over my years, I've seen lots of guys who came in and said, well, I'm going to be a referee, or I'm going to be this. No plans really on being a wrestler. But then once they go through the training and they start earning respect from the boys, because they are doing the training and going through the lumps and bumps just like everybody else and everything, then all of a sudden they're like, I really like this. This is what I was meant to do. Heck with being a manager or rep, I'm going to be a wrestler. And I know a lot of guys that ended up, turning into a wrestler and actually having a decent career at it and stuff.
Yeah, you get that itch. You get that itch because professional wrestling, it's I don't want to say a disease because that's kind of a rough word, but there's an aura about it. Once it's in your blood, right?
Yep. If you've got you've got any type of entertainer in your blood whatsoever, once you get exposed to it like that, it's that from then on.
Yeah. So 30 years in the business, roughly, I'm rounding. It's easier that way.
Yep.
You said that you were one of the kind of founding members of Heartland with Les and everything. I didn't know until I did some research late last night before I went to work that Heartland was a WCW and at that time WWF, right, / WWE developmental.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, first got signed a contract with WCW and was a developmental company for them for a while, and then WWE bought them out, and then they retained us as a developmental territory for a few more years through them. Us and OVW, yeah, it was some really great times.
We know the list of people from OVW. Horrible on me that I didn't do enough homework, but can you give us some more names that, kind of came through Heartland that, some of the Can Crusher Nation will be like, holy shit, maybe I need to go back and get some Heartland videos and watch them?
shoot. Yeah, and you can check it out on YouTube. There's a bunch of stuff out there from when we used to do TV and different things like that, and some from the developmental times. Plus, we were the ones who did the original Brian Pillman Memorial events in
with Joe Dombrowski.
2000 and 2001. We did those, and I was one of a couple of the promoters. That was such a huge thing. It took several promoters to take care of all that and everything. Plus, I was in charge of all the logistics and transportation for all the talent that came in from all the different places. There was people came in from all over the world to do the filming. But back on HWA, Randy Orton came through there back then. A gentleman called Prototype at the time, and y'all know him as one John Cena. He did lots of shows at HWA and stuff during his developmental time, and when they brought all the boys from what was the WCW developmental at Georgia and stuff, brought all them up there, superhero and training, Big Matty Anoy and his cousin Eddie Fatu, which was ECMO.
Yep.
There just about everybody. And some of my favorites were the Natural Born Thrillers were there with Jidrak and Mike Matthews and those guys. And Kevin Nash was in and out of there a lot during that time period. Of course, Dr. Tom was in there doing a lot of instructing and stuff with the contract guys during the developmental times.
Do you still keep in contact with some of those guys and have them come back for seminars for, any promotion that you're working with right now?
Yeah, when they're in the area and stuff,
right.
For the most part, we kind of line it up with their schedule and stuff. But like at FGW, Ace Austin's been there from Impact. Sammy Callahan's been there and done some seminars there with Cody Hawk at FGW. Plus, they've been on the show and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Get back to your training a little bit because the training is different from now to back then. Do you agree?
Depends on where you go. Like I said, you still got guys that teach the old ways, like Cody Hawk, for example. He's one of the top trainers still in the country and everything, and he still, he runs old school training, and he teaches you the psychology and everything, and of course how to bump and everything. He teaches character development and how to work in front of a camera, mic skills and different things like that. But you still got guys like him and like Dr. Tom down in Tennessee has got his thing going down there, and he still teaches those old school values like that also.
When you were training, though, was there ever a time that you're like, oh man, I don't know if this is I'm fine working at the plant. I'm done with this, getting my ass beat by big old Les Thatcher.
No, not really. Once I was in, I was pretty well hooked in, and there's a couple of times over the years that I've got frustrated and aggravated with life in general and tried to walk away. Like we were talking about, I got 29, almost 30 years in now. So you see, I keep getting lured back. I've worked with, I started out at what's now known as NWF, then to HWA, and I helped start up a few other companies in this area along with Cody Hawk and everything. And like you were talking, we're now at Future Great Wrestling, just about 30 minutes north of Cincinnati is where they're located in a little town called Hamilton, Ohio.
Yeah. Okay. So working with WCW, WWE people as well, you have to have some great stories about, we're not going to throw John Cena under the bus, but if you want to throw John Cena under the bus, that would be great, of just some of their trainings, because you look at them, over the 90s, the 2000s, everything, and they're like, oh man, they were built for this, but they had to be trained. Did they ever have oh no moments going through training that you're like, oh man, this kid might not be it?
I'm not real sure how to answer that. After all these years, there's a lot of us that after you've done this a while, and especially when you were lucky enough to be exposed to the people that I have been, with the filming events and the developmental contracts and everything. I've got to pick the brains of everybody from Ric Flair all the way down. I've cruised around Cincinnati with Terry Taylor, Ric Flair, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Jericho in the vehicle. And I had a big old van back then, and I'd be running them to the gym or something to hang out and get a workout in and get to pick their brains on psychology and just listen to some of their stories to learn more psychology and stuff. I got really lucky to be in the right area with the right bunch of people at just the right time.
All right. Yeah, that's that.
I've had a few people approach and say that me and Cody Hawk combined need to sit down and just tell our stories to somebody who knows how to write a book, because like I said, we were lucky to be in the right place at the right time with the right people, and we got exposure like you couldn't beg to go to a training facility and get exposed to the stuff that me and Cody did.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say, have you ever thought about writing a book about your stories and kind of, I don't want to say self-help, but like a self-help to get into wrestling and teach the younger ones that might think, okay, I know all this because I've watched wrestling for, 30 years or whatever, but the youngsters...
That don't even compare to what it is once you immerse yourself with the right people, and I can't stress it. Anybody out there listening, I can't stress enough, even if you're already been in this business for say 5 years and stuff, and you've hit that plateau and you actually look yourself in the mirror and honest with yourself and say you just don't have the skills because they haven't been taught to you, you need to find the right trainer. You have to get to somebody like Cody Hawk, or big Tom Pritchard. You've got to get to guys like that. You just can't go to these small feds that happen to be close to your town and stuff like that. If you want to do this, pack your shit and get the hell to Cody freaking Hawk and get the right training.
That's well put, Jaxon. That really is. We've heard that from other people saying it. Cody Hawk or like OVW or Seth Rollins' place or something like that. You can't go to Mark Martinez's wrestling training school because I'm going to give you a video game controller and say, all right, this is how you do moves. A, B, I don't know that. And there's a lot of people out there that say they're wrestling trainers that they might be in the business for 5 years. That doesn't give them enough time to be a trainer, right?
Not at all. Not in my book. And there's too many guys like that out there, like you said, that claim they're trainer. They've only been in the business 5 years, not to mention the fact that they've only worked at a local show,
right?
And they go, and that's called, and there's a lot of them nowadays, they call that their training because they're booked on a show weekly. I don't care. That's nowhere near enough ring time for you to get the knowledge and to be a solid and safe worker in this business. If you've got free time during the week, you better make time and make sure you're in a training facility throughout the week. Working 1 or 2 shows a week, that doesn't give you your skills, and it sure don't fine-tune what you may already have. You have to still keep training if you want to make it.
Just like anything else, Jaxon, the wrestling business continues to change. So after, again, rounding 30 years in the business, you're still learning too. New tricks, new trades, new something, right? I mean, there's never a dull moment in the business where you can't get yourself better.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't care how long you've done this. If 30-year vet like me, some people would say, oh, you've done it all. And, I've done a little bit of everything, but there's still almost every show or training that I go to, I still pick up something, There's always more to learn and more to add to your repertoire. You can't ever quit learning in this business. One, if you stop learning in this business, you're getting left behind.
I like one of the posts. I have a two-part kind of question. I like one of the posts that you put up maybe a couple of weeks ago, that if you're getting stagnant, that means you're not training, which kind of what you just said. And just because you're booked on a card doesn't mean you shouldn't train. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it exactly. Just because you're booked on a card or, a dark match for, like, say, AEW, WWE, doesn't mean you made it. It doesn't mean you should stop training, right?
No, not at all. The guys that you watch on TV, those guys work, a lot of them 300 days plus a year, but they still, when they've got a free moment, even the guys you're watching on WWE and AEW, those guys still go to those companies' training facilities and train in their free time. They get in the ring and they still practice their craft. And that's not even counting all the gym time of working out with weights and getting their cardio going and stuff.
Another thing I want to bring up, as I kind of said that wrestling has transitioned, one is social media. 30 years ago, we didn't have everything that's out there. How do you feel about, wrestlers being on social media? Do you think it's a plus, or do you think it hurts them? And I have kind of two thoughts on it.
It depends on how they use it.
Thank you. You already answered my question. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it depends on how they use it, man. It can be mishandled for, what you think you're doing right. But, there's a lot of people that want to get out there and they'll have their fan page or whatever, but then they put their personal business on there and different things like that. And I'm still old school as hell, brother. I still believe in kayfabe. Yeah, a lot's been exposed and this, that, and the other, but the fans, the real fans, they still want to believe, they know
I do.
to a degree.
I do, exactly.
Stuff like that and everything, but one, you don't ever post your personal business on social media, whether it's your personal family page or if it's your persona page. Either one, you don't put your personal business on either one of them. You don't put that out on there on social media. It's called your personal business for a reason. And if you're a worker, that'll definitely cut your throat, because you say especially this day and age in these times, it just takes one mistaken statement that you make that will bury you with the public.
Yeah, I'm one that I love, and I know them personally, and they'll both throw me under their bus because they listen to the podcast every once in a while. I love Britt Baker and Chelsea Green. Okay, a couple years ago in Rise, they were having this huge feud. Cool. We all know that wrestlers are friends behind the curtain. When they come out of the curtain, I want them to hate each other.
Yep.
After the event, I don't want to see that wrestler X and wrestler Y are now drinking at, Bob's Saloon down the corner. Damn it. I want that little bit of kayfabe that we have, just like you said, left. I want that because I'm an old school wrestling fan. I want that. Cool. Yeah, you can be friends. Stop posting that stuff. Use it just to promote yourself and to get in contact with other, promoters.
Yeah, like you said, sure, a bunch of us are friends, outside of the business and stuff and things like that. But, you don't post those pictures of, the most over heel in your area and you, the big baby face, hanging out at Joe's Pub, like you said. And there's a lot of guys nowadays that'll make that same mistake, because a lot of these places still have their after parties that they've set up with a local establishment and go there. But, if you're with any of my old crew and like guys that were training with Cody and stuff like that, we go to an after party, you will not see us sitting on the same room as the guy we were just in the match with. That's BS. Yeah, a lot's been exposed, but still, it's still that event's, It's still part of that event, that after party is. So you still need to give the fans what they're wanting and stay in character and do your thing. And you don't go out there slap assing with your
besties.
With your opponent. Yeah, with your opponent you just had a match with, no matter how good a friend you are outside of the business.
Yep. It got exposed to me when Duggan and the Iron Sheik were picked up for their issue, their drug thing back then, and I'm like, because it was huge news in the newspaper when everybody knew what the hell a newspaper was, or it came across a blurb on CNN or something. I was like, wait, they hate each other. One's an American or one's an Iraqi. Why would they be riding together? So
why are they hanging out and getting in trouble together?
Yeah, like that was kind of for me. So that kind of tells you how old I am. That was mid '80s when that happened. I'm like, what the Christ? They're not supposed to be doing that.
I totally agree, man. And like I said, most of the guys that I know in this area that's been doing this for any length of time, we still believe in keeping all that stuff separate.
Good. I love it. So let's talk about some of your other hats that you wore as like promoter and manager as well. But the promoter aspect of it is always something I'm so intrigued by. I love this side of the wrestling community being on the air, giving people like you or anybody else their spotlight time to talk about wrestling. But the promoter's always been something like, oh man, how and what if and how could I, how did you kind of really get into that? I know involved with less, but you've ran with it for a while, right?
Yeah, geez, that's the most thankless job possibly in professional wrestling.
All right, then I don't want it. Never mind.
Yep. No. Promoter gets no credit. A lot of people think that the owner of a company is the promoter, which for the most part he kind of should be, but they usually have other guys who are more skilled at it, plus they'll learn from them, and then they help promote their companies and stuff. But an actual promoter, which I started out as a manager in this business and everything, and I've still done that to this day. And, like the Vince McMahon types of different companies in the area and stuff. But as a promoter, I put in more hours when I was promoting for HWA as a promoter. I put in more hours doing that than I did at my 40-plus hour a week shoot job.
Oh, my God. And I don't want to say this backhanded. What did you get out of it besides yay? Or, is there anything today that you say, I got this because I was the promoter of the year, or I was, this, that, or the other thing? Or did you just get sometimes a pat on the back?
Well, like I said, you're lucky you get a pat on the back. Like I said, it's the most thankless job. People don't realize what an actual promoter, the hours and the work that goes into it. And, there's I assume even more work with it now because of social media, but it's a lot harder back, in the 90s and stuff when I was promoting like the Pillman events and promoting the regular shows for Heartland Wrestling back then. You didn't have social media. So it was strictly 100% getting out here and walking the streets and meeting people and physically handing a flyer to a potential fan and, maybe passing out some comp tickets to somebody that, hasn't ever been to your show, and not to mention going to all the local businesses to get sponsors and to ask every convenience store in the area to let you put up one of the big posters up in their store. And back then it was running all over for me is running all over the Hamilton, Fairfield, Cincinnati area with 1,000 big cardboard flyers and a staple gun and hitting every telephone at every major intersection that I could find. Nowadays, you can't even hardly do that because now they've switched all the damn telephone poles to steel.
Yep.
So you can't, and not to mention nowadays, every town's got all these rules and regulations, and shoot, you'll get a ticket or a fine or something for putting up posters on poles like that nowadays if you ain't careful. So yeah, the social media helps on on that a little, but you can't count on just social media either.
No, you still have to pound the streets. You really do.
Yeah. You have to get out here and meet the people and go find the people who don't know that you're running a show. You know, HWA was about as famous. They were known worldwide back in their time, but I would still go out promoting and handing out flyers and stuff. And I could be, you know, within a mile of Heartland's wrestling arena where they did their TV tapings and ran shows and stuff. And I'd go up to people after them being on TV and known worldwide, and people still didn't realize that was going on right in their backyard.
That's unbelievable. Even in that day and age, that's unbelievable that people that oblivious don't know what's going on a mile away from their house.
And it's still like that, dude.
Oh yeah,
still like that every time. You know, that's what, like me and you both said, that's why you still have to get out here as a promoter and pound the pavement and get out in the public and stuff. And you have to make them aware. You can't count on social media and different things like that 100%. It's just not going to do it.
Were you ever a fan, or are you a fan of going to? All right, so you're working at Heartland, okay, and then another organization down the road, probably 25 miles or something, is having an event. Are you a fan of going to when you know the show is going to be over and tossing, you know, stuff on windows, or as they're coming out of the event, or do you think that's kind of taken away from their mojo? That's
tacky and unprofessional.
Thank you. I hated that.
Yep, and I feel the same thing about the workers. You know, if you work, say you work in Cincinnati at one of the local feds, which Cincinnati, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they're flooded with
there's a ton of them. Yeah.
And you know, and a lot of us still live by that rule. Like me, all my years at HWA, I had offers to go at a lot of the places right here in the tri-state. Some I would take, but they had to be a certain distance away from Heartland, or I wouldn't take the booking. You know, if it was right here in the heart of Cincinnati, I wouldn't take it. No matter how much they offered me, I still won't. Like I'm at Future Great Wrestling. I won't take local bookings that are within, say, 50 miles of FGW's arena, because that is too close.
Is it because I know talent-wise will work sometimes legitimately 3 miles away. Is it because old school mentality, that's your home base, that's what you're going to build up, that's where, you know, you hang your hat and stuff like that, or is it just because of your character?
It's all of it. You know, one, you know, it's disrespectful to the people who are really looking out for you. If you have a home company, that's your home company, and they will take care of you, and they're always going to have a spot for you and different things like that. I feel you need to show some loyalty to that. Not to mention, if you're working down the street on Friday, you know, and then on Saturday you're 5 miles away from there, and then, you know, Sunday you're 10 miles from there, you're oversaturating your character. The promoters of all these different companies aren't going to care. They've got you in the ring, and they're hoping to draw some of your fans from your home base and pull those fans away from there, which I think that's shitty, you know. And you're going to water down your character. The fans can pick and choose when and if they want to see you that way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I love that. I love how you said that.
And let's face it, that makes your value to that promoter go down, because you're watering your character down. You're not as much of a draw as you were. You know, before there might have been 100 fans follow you everywhere you went, which that means you're going to get paid more the more people that's going to come because you're on the show. But when they can pick and choose any given days, 7 days a week to go see you within a 25-mile radius, you're not worth as much to the promoters, for one, and you're not worth as much to the fans because they can see you any old time.
That's wrestling in general, and I never thought of that, Jaxon. because why? That's why WWE branches out. Then they go to New York this week, San Francisco this week. If they would just stay in New York, their live shows would just deplete. Then essentially, because all right, cool, I'm gonna see Seth Rollins every Friday night here in New York at someplace. I'm gonna get sick of seeing Seth Rollins.
If you can see him every week.
Right. I never thought about that's why the territories essentially did that move from place to place, because it's a different crowd, it's different money, it's new money, it's more money.
Yeah. Now don't get me wrong, don't take that too far, because if you're at a place like FGW, they're a lot different than most of your independent companies in the area. They do what I call studio wrestling.
Yes.
Like the old NWA that I grew up on, and back in the
TBS.
70s.
Yep.
Right. It was strictly for TV. It was done in a studio, and it was week to week. And you need your main roster of those same guys that are there every week, because the fans get attached to them and they want to see that guy come in. NWA. You wanted to see the Four Horsemen every freaking week. You didn't necessarily see them every week, but you've seen them most weeks, and that's kind of what HWA was, a studio type place, because they were teaching people how to work shows for TV, and they had a TV production, which is what Future Great Wrestling. That's the type of format that they have, because they run a weekly show that carries storylines week to week, with the big payoff coming month to month and things like that. And and it's what I would consider still a training developmental type format, because you're teaching these young independent guys how to get ready to, if they get the opportunity to actually perform on TV. And like Future Great Wrestling just cut a deal up in Dayton, and they're going to start being on TV in the Dayton area, and I'm sure within a year or so they'll be all over the Cincinnati area and slowly start spreading out TV wise, kind of like the HWA format back in the day and stuff.
That's great news. That really is, because I think having your product on, even if it's a local TV, it gets the talent ready. It's just another step that, okay, every Saturday at in an armory in town, there might be a wrestling event, but what is that doing for the next level of, there's no cameras, there's no this, there's no that. You're getting your skills down, but you don't know how to talk in front of a camera. As soon as the camera's put in your face, your promos just turn into old school Roman Reigns promos,
Yeah. Yeah, and
you got that joke
TV,
at least.
TV tapings and a studio format wrestling facility is a whole different animal than most of your independent stuff that, like you said, runs in an armory every month or two or whatever, or at your local civic center or something like that every month or every 2 months and stuff like that. Whole different animal than a studio format that's going week to week with full-blown storylines and stuff. You don't have to worry about that at like a fair show and the armory show. People aren't coming there to get caught up in a story.
No, they're there just for that event. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a good guy versus bad guy thing there,
Yeah.
And personally, I like the stories. And when you're trained to do the TV type format, the studio, what I call studio wrestling, one, you got to worry about promos and vignettes, promos and vignettes are a wonderful thing. One of the best tools ever to tell a story. Vignettes are wonderful. I always liked them all the way back in the day. The vignettes were always my favorite to watch.
I agree. Growing up young in the 80s when I found wrestling with my grandfather, seeing the Kamala vignettes or Razor Ramon's always one that, they're just those little blurbs of him coming to the WWF and you don't know, where this is going to go. But that's what they wanted you to do. Yeah.
And like the after-match promos for a studio thing, the after-match promo, the Horsemen and J.J. Dillon, they go over to Tony Schiavone and they start cutting a promo, and then all of a sudden somebody out of the back comes out and assaults them. And
Dusty, usually, yeah.
Yes. that's all great TV, I think. And it tells the story and sets up everything for the upcoming match.
When you guys for FGW, when you guys give them, whatever wrestler a promo, do you give them bullet points, or do you say you have to say this? So much scripted, because I'm a huge fan that Tully Blanchard always said, if you give them the where, when, and why, they're going to know how to get there and everything. The new promos are just like reading a book. They're so generic. You can tell that they are written, they're horrible.
Check out some future great wrestling promos. Most of them boys have been taught right. They've been taught by a lot of my buddies in this area that are old HWA guys. A lot of them have done one-on-ones with Cody Hawk, and sometimes those one-on-ones that they're paying for, they're wanting to work on the development of their speaking abilities, mic skills, and things for promos and stuff. But if you go Future Great Wrestling, they've got the weekly thing, so there's always a handful of those guys, if not majority of the roster, that put out promos almost every week. And the main bullet points, you learn that. If you're trained right, you'll learn what those basic bullet points are. Like you said, who, what, where, when, and then and then you got to get involved in your character and bring your character to that. And I'm old school. Cody Hawk's old school. We do everything on the fly. Cody Hawk, when he wrestles, it's on the fly. You won't see Cody Hawk in the back of a locker room sitting down with somebody going over every little detail. Usually he'll walk up, hey, how's it going? We'll take care of it in the ring, and they'll do it in the ring on the fly. And he's by that as I am by promos and stuff. 98% of my promos completely on the fly.
There's more passion there with it, and the fans like myself and the other smart marks, as I guess we're all called, we can feel it. We know that this is coming, this is true, because a promo turns into you making it your thing, compared to, I'm throwing it out saying Vince doesn't write them, somebody writes them for him, but the writer writes, all right, Seth, and I'm throwing Seth Rollins under the bus the whole damn show, and I don't mean to, but because he's actually probably one of the better talkers. He's just at the top of my head right now. But all right, Seth, this is what you have to say right now, and that's what he has to say. And they used to be good, and now they're just not.
I would say most of those type promos are written by some writer and stuff, but they give they're going to give the guy the promo, but they still expect them to put their character stamp on it,
Right.
You have to for one. Jeez,
to sell the story, right?
Then again, those the ones who don't get their character involved and don't really, polish their character development for that type of situation. Those are the ones that you get that you say that just sound generic and just blah, 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 blah.
Right.
They sound very robotic, and you can tell that they're going off a script. Yeah. They got no heart, no passion, and they forget. And because of that, and they're trying to follow that script so hard, then they forget to put their character into it and stuff.
A couple more questions, and then I'll let you go, as I know the kind of timetable and everything. Wrestling from when you were a kid, I was a kid, you were a little bit older than me, but it doesn't matter. What changes do you see that you kind of don't like from back then till now, besides the whole social media thing that we've already covered in professional wrestling or professional entertainment, if some would say, and how can we get around those nowadays?
One of the things that burns my ass lately more than anything is a lot of people out there on these group pages and different things saying how old school ways are dead, that's forgotten, you need to get with the times and all this stuff, and kayfabe's dead and you gotta get with the times. It's all bullshit in my book. Pardon my French, but those are definitely two things that are pet peeve of mine nowadays. Old school that's what made this thing, made this a great industry to begin with, and it's just like anything else, anything 101, wrestling 101. You have to stick to those core old school values, and you need to keep that kayfabe going, like we were talking about before. Your heels and your baby faces after the show shouldn't be going to where the fans hang out and all hanging out and slap assing with each other and crap like that. It's bad for the business. The fans don't want to see it, and anybody who's cutting it down saying, no, let's get with the times, Jaxon, that's why you're old, you need to quit, and this, that, and aggravating, frustrating, because it feels like you're beating your head against a wall trying to talk sense into these people. This is what made it great. Don't kill what works. Yeah, you can tweak it up and stay with the times, but you still have those basics, fundamentals of pro wrestling that you cannot change it. It's what works. It's proven. It's a proven format and formula. It's what works, damn it.
Yeah, I'm waving your flag, Jaxon. I'm waving your flag. Who do you think has or had or continues to have the greatest wrestling mind in the business? Do you know him personally? Do you is it you? Is it, anybody that you're like, this guy makes the most sense when he's talking about wrestling?
Depends on which part, to it, sort of. But my big thing is the guys who teach psychology. That's so important. Psychology and character development. And then I got to go and jump back on the bandwagon of my best buddy, Cody freaking Hawk, There's a guy who was brought up the old school values and still preaches it and teaches it, and he walks the walk and talks the talk. He practices what he preaches. And then you got guys that are same exact mindset that people are more familiar with. Al Snow, Dr. Tom, those guys preach the same core values that Cody does and stuff. And those are guys who were a big influence on Cody. He's trained with those guys and he's wrestled with those guys, and he's got to pick their brains. And Dr. Tom, I was blessed during the developmental days at HWA to get to listen to that man talk. And to this day, as much as I've heard his stories and his points on psychology, I can still sit and listen to that man day in and day out. Anything he's got to say, I'm willing to listen. And a lot of people give old Jim Cornette a hard time. That's somebody I got to spend a lot of days with back in the when he was at OVW and stuff like that, him and Les and stuff. And a lot of people give him a lot of heat over some of the stuff he says, and I don't agree with everything he says, but the man is a genius when it comes to psychology and what actually works in this business, past, present, and future.
Those are all great names. And again, I'm glad I called you because I needed this today, because I've been in a rut in wrestling and I needed somebody to be on my side to say, this is what we need to bring back around. I love it. I love talking with you. Two more questions.
Old school still rules, damn it.
It does. It really does. Two more questions. One is maybe for me to pander to get some more people from FGW on the show. But do you think doing podcasts, and you could say, no, this is the stupidest thing in the world, Mark, but do you think that helps develop character? Because we're essentially a radio show. You used to have people like Hogan and those guys go on radio shows. Do you think it helps the younger kids learn to talk and learn to build their character when they don't see anybody? I could do these over Skype, but I think it's nice because I don't want to see the facial reactions. I want them to say, oh, I wonder if he took that the right way or whatever. Do you think doing podcasts help? Because I'm going to say, we talked to Ricky Morton one time, and he's like, I would send you guys, everybody from the school of Morton, because they need to learn how to talk. And Al has done the same thing with OVW.
I encourage the guys to jump on these podcasts and stuff. You know, look at me, 29 years in the business, and here I am still getting on these podcasts and talking. One, it helps draw in new fans to what you're doing. It can help you develop your character and stuff like that. For the most part, I've just been regular Jaxon Breeze, not so much my character per se.
Right.
And everything, you know, to a degree, a lot of these end up kind of a shoot type deal. But, you know, it depends. And just like anything else, it is a tool that, if utilized correctly, is a big plus.
If anything, promotion as well. You know, they might not know.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest pluses, and that's why, you know, that's why I still get on these. I'd be a fool not to. It's an opportunity to get the word out with the group of guys that I'm working with, like right now. Future Great Wrestling's got a whole lot of plugs out of this, and that's good for them, and anything that's good for them is good for me and anybody else that works there. So that's all a positive.
Agreed. All right, so let's talk about that. You have your show coming up here in November. Where's it taking place? Tickets still available? You know, what can we expect on the show?
Well, first off, we have a show this Friday night.
Oh, shit, that's in 3 days. All right, good to go.
Right.
It plays Wednesday. Yeah.
We are a studio format.
Yeah.
We are a weekly show. We're on you. We have a YouTube channel that puts out a show called Shockwave for Future Great Wrestling. And like I was telling you earlier, we just struck up a deal up in Dayton to be on their local television, which we will be on there hopefully before the end of the year. We'll actually start airing things in the local Dayton area, which is just north of us. Hamilton, Ohio is pretty much right in the middle of in between Dayton and Cincinnati, so it's a really good location if anybody wants to come out. And they run every Friday night. It's at 190 North Brookwood Avenue in Hamilton, Ohio, in the FGW Arena, which is inside the Elite Performance Center Sports Complex. There's a couple other companies in there, but not wrestling companies, but there's like a boxing gym facility and different things like that in there along with us. But we have our own little arena area that's closed off from all that and everything, and we run every Friday night. November 5th is what you're looking forward to. Hopefully you can make it into town. Let me know if you do. I'll get you in the door, especially knowing that you're casting a vote for Jaxon Breeze to be the general manager for Future Great Wrestling. That'll be election night.
Yeah.
Future Great Wrestling general manager, November 5th. And also that will be the night for the Super Zeta Memorial Championship, which is held once a year at Future Great Wrestling. For those that don't know, that is in memory of Super Zeta. He is a buddy of mine and Cody Hawks and a bunch of us in this area. He was a big star out of Mexico, worked all over Mexico City and all over the United States, a well-traveled luchador. And he just took a liking to Cody Hawk and some of us here in Cincinnati years ago at Heartland Wrestling, and started coming when he was in the area. He would always come to those shows, and when Future Great Wrestling was formed, he was an original member of it. And when he was traveling and come to town, he would go to the training facility and run classes all through the week while he was in town and stuff for the boys in the locker room to give them an added arsenal, added things to their arsenal, and teach them some luchador stuff and things like that, which Miss Shauna Reed was one of his proteges, which I'm sure you've heard of Shauna Reed.
She's going to be coming on the show shortly, in about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, she just got married, her and Cody Evan Hawk.
They did. That's actually why I reached out. I was supposed to, we talked about this before we went on the air. I was supposed to go with Cody and Shauna on this epic trip around Ohio. Some things happened at home that, I had to cancel. Somebody else took my spot. I reached out to Shauna and said, I want to know about this whole trip. She's like, I can't do it right now, Mark, because I'm getting married. I'm like, oh, that's right. Congratulations. I've been seeing it on your posts forever and ever. I'm just a jackass. I'm sorry that I reached out to you right now. She's like, give me a week or two to get things set up, and then Yeah, she wanted to tell me about the trip that I missed. So I'm sure it's going to, be salt in the wounds, Jaxon.
Yeah, that'll be a big night. Like I said, the election is on November 5th, and that Super Zeta Memorial Championship is that night and everything. And which, like I said, that's a really important event to everybody at FGW and honestly in the tri-state area, because Super Zeta, like I said, he's been traveling here from Mexico for like 15 years and everything, and he succumbed to a battle with cancer.
Yep.
And as a credit to that man, while he was battling that cancer, he was still traveling. He was still coming up here to Ohio, here in Hamilton, to FGW, working shows.
That's unbelievable.
He was at an FGW show, performed on the show within like a week or two of him passing from his cancer and everything. And like I said, that's a lot of the reason this is such it's such a prestigious thing to be the one carrying that belt in his memory, because he meant so much to so many people in the wrestling business.
Okay, one more question, then I'll let you go. 30 years in the business, what are your plans? How long? What will wrestling ever, and I know the answer to this, so it's a generic question, but expand on it. Will wrestling ever leave you? And what has wrestling provided for you in 30 years?
Oh, the main thing it's provided is a whole lot of really, really good friends. I've got memories that I could write books about hanging out with celebrities and stuff, but the biggest thing is my buddies that are on the independent circle real friends that I have made just on the independent level, more so than any of that, means so much more.
And is there ever going to be a time that you say, Uncle Jaxon Breeze is walking away? You said you tried.
I've been trying to retire for 3 years at the moment, if that tells you anything. I actually was had been talking to some people right before this COVID crap hit and everything, and was saying, well, I think next year will be my last year, I'm closing in on 30, and I've done this a long time, and to be honest, I'm beat to hell and back, even though I've always just been a manager and stuff like that, hell, training with Les and all them days at HWA and traveling with American Kickboxer and Tarek the Great put a beating on my ass because I was a heel manager then. Well, I was a heel manager back then, so, it wasn't unusual to get my ass whooped for interfering in a match, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, and I also, in 1987, you familiar with Red River Gorge in Kentucky?
Yes, I am.
I was caving down there with about 20, 30 buddies, and I hung from a cliff for about 20 minutes from some little roots until they broke, and they dropped me 120 feet, face and chest first.
Fuck.
Yeah, should have killed me. I looked like the Elephant Man for about 6 months. One side of my face was swollen up like a pumpkin for, close to 6 months.
How? I don't know if you're a religious man or anything, but the good Lord saved you. I am. How the hell? That's now we need to have a part 2 when I come out November 5th, because this is unbelievable. How can you end the freaking podcast with that, Jaxon?
Hey, you gotta leave it with a cliffhanger, brother. You gotta leave them wanting more.
Holy shit!
That's a story in all of itself, you know what I mean? Because, that was a rough night, to say the least. 120 feet, nothing to catch me but the ground, and I had a bar flashlight strapped to my chest with 8 D-cell batteries that I crushed all 8 of those batteries with my chest down to about a 1/4 inch thick.
Jesus Christ. That's unbelievable.
I believe he might have been there and had a hand involved there, because there's no way on God's green earth that I should have walked away from that, to be honest, and it didn't even knock me out.
Oh my God. Well,
Yeah.
there's part 2 for when Uncle Jackson Breeze comes back on the show to talk more about that. And hopefully Cody freaking Hawk is around too, because we should just have a sit down and let you two record. Here you go. Here's the mic. Talk, because I'm sure there's tons of stories. And then we could throw Sean in as well.
You need to make a couple trips up there. One to check out the Future Great Wrestling Show at 190 North Brookwood Avenue every Friday night. Doors open 6:30, bell time 7, but you need to make it up for that and give us a heads up. So me, Cody, and Shauna, and I got a buddy over in Indiana named Drew Skills, is pretty popular across the United States, that might be able to pop in for that show and everything, and we'll set you down with a real crew of old school and some new up-and-comers like Shauna Reed and some of those that are training with Cody Hawk presently.
Oh man, you sold me already. The car's packed. The wife is taken care of. I will be out. I'm guaranteeing you right now, November 5th, I'll be out. I'll take the day off and head out. It's about 6 hours away from here, but I don't care. Good to go.
All right, man. Just if you for sure come November 5th, give me a heads. Get a hold of me. You got my number and all my contact info and stuff. Give me a heads up. I'll make sure I get a few people together to hang out after the show and bullshit with you for an hour or so.
That'll be sweet. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, Jaxon. This has been amazing. So many stories. I thank you again.
Hey, my pleasure, man. Look forward to meeting you in person. Make sure everybody tunes in to Future Great Wrestling.
I'm so excited when I set up dates on podcasts. I literally just set up a date to go out to Ohio to meet up with Cody fucking Hawk, or freaking Hawk, or whatever, Shauna Reed, and Uncle Jackson Breeze, and a host of others at Future Great Wrestling for that amazing event. I get a vote. I'm going to show up and I get a vote. So let's see what happens with this election. Stories, guys. Aren't they amazing? Don't you want to hear a book? Or read a book, hear one, it doesn't matter, it could be audio as well. Don't you want a book from him and Cody Hawk? Old school wrestling training or something like that, just getting those stories out there and how amazing they are? Yeah, I do. Somebody that can write a book, set this up, because we need to do this, because it would be, in wrestling community, it would be a great seller. Yeah, I did spoil it. Shauna Reed will be coming on the show shortly. We just have to iron some more things out. She just got married, so guys, give her a break. Man, he dove into a lot of stuff. He really did. I love that he said old school still rules. I like that he still does push the podcast, that they should come on. Look, he's been in the business for 30 years. He doesn't need to. He wants to. He knows to, because it helps Future Great Wrestling. Yeah, he said there's a lot of plugs. There's a lot of plugs for Future Great Wrestling. I don't know how many more times I'm going to say it. He said it a ton. I said it a ton. But that's what it's about. It's about promoting, putting asses in seats. Ricky Morton said it during the interview. Go listen to that. You put asses in seats, everybody is going to make money at some point. Everybody gets the exposure. Everybody gets it right. And that's what the wrestling community is about. From him being an owner, promoter, manager, this, that, all the way down to me as Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast. We all love this community. We all do this to get wrestling continually to grow and get better and all of that, because it's in our blood. We love it. We do so much. Guys, you can find us everywhere you can find freaking podcasts. It's on Stitcher, it's on iHeart, it's on Spotify. You know them by now. Do I need to mention them every time? No, I don't. Guys, you can also send us an email at cancrusher69@gmail.com. Okay? We are on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We have a group on Facebook. Again, all of that stuff is out there. Essentially, it's at CanCrusher69. Once you get to, the Facebook page and all that, you can find them there. And don't forget, if you ever want to chime in and be part of the podcast, saying something like, hey, man, I love what Jaxon said during this podcast, and your voice could be heard on the next podcast, you can give us a call, 814-299-6687. Again, it's 814-299-6687. It goes right to a voicemail. Leave whatever you want to say about us. I hate Can Crushers. I love Can Crushers. Man, that interview with Jaxon was awesome. Can you replay the Ricky Morton one? Or how can I find that? Or tell me some more. Lead us into the next generation. Whatever. Now I'm just rambling. But you guys understand. Every Sunday, you get our weekly wrap-up show. Every Wednesday, you get a spotlight with somebody in the wrestling business. This week's was Uncle Jaxon Reed. God, Shauna and Jaxon, I'm sorry. Uncle Jaxon Breeze. It's just awesome. Guys, if you want to be part of Can Crushers, call us, email us, get a hold of us on social media. We'll make it happen. I love inviting people on, talking and learning their story about how they got into professional wrestling and what their next move is. Again, guys, remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot.